Why is everything so dull and monochromatic now? Why is everything about our culture so difficult to define? That's a question I've been kicking around a lot lately. Hi folks, I'm Paul, and this is my take. I bought my first car ever in 2020, and as I was making my selection, as I was going through the endless listings, I noticed something interesting. Most of the cars are silver. You've got black, you've got white, and then you've got a bunch of shades of shiny gray in between. Sure, there's an occasional blue or green car, but it's like a bluish gray. All the cars just kind of look the same. If you want something colorful, you've got to shell out the big bucks. And I've noticed the same sort of thing can be said about a lot of new construction as well. The vast majority of new houses I see going up look very similar. Monochromatic, vertical siding, grayish blue or white colors, each one nearly identical to the one next to it. High-rise buildings have been on the same trajectory for a long time as well. You don't see anyone constructing something that looks like the Flatiron Building or something like that anymore these days. All of these skyscrapers are monochromatic steel and glass rectangles. Interior design trends have really seemed to bottom out as well. I'll occasionally go on Zillow and look at a new house or an older house that has been recently flipped, and I'm struck by the empty, sterile soullessness of white paint, gray vinyl floors, and glass fixtures. Everything's kind of charmless and devoid of personality. Now, I won't go so far as to say that these design choices are necessarily bad. They're fine, but they're boring. And the thing is, they've never not been boring. We're not at the tail end of a design trend that has played out and become uninteresting to us. These designs have never really been interesting to us. And that's because these designs are baseline. Everything is neutral. Everything is safe. It's all very inoffensive because it really doesn't have anything to say. It makes no statements. I don't want to go so far as to say that these designs are inauthentic. They're not lying to us about what they are, but I think they're indicative of our culture's crisis of authenticity. I feel like very little is authentic anymore. Now, everything that I'm saying and about to say is conjecture. I do have a background in design, but at the end of the day, I'm just a guy giving you his take. So if you have some thoughts that you'd like to add, maybe you can shed a little light on something I'm not talking about, not thinking about, show me why I'm wrong, show me why I'm right. Whatever you have to say, I would love to hear it in the comments below. But I think there are several reasons for this monochromaticism, this lack of color, this lack of authenticity within American and Western culture, and by extension, our design trends. I think the three biggest reasons that stand out to me are a culmination of millennial culture, consumerism culture, and a high influx of immigration over the last 20 years. Let me start with millennials. Millennials are hypersensitive. Sometimes that's a good thing, but I think generally speaking, it's a net negative. The millennial generation has been conditioned to be extremely aware of how they're perceived by others. They're big into being inclusive, being deferential, being inoffensive. And in doing this, a lot of time, authenticity is stifled or discouraged. Because authenticity is honesty, and sometimes when you're being honest, it can offend people. The truth isn't always nice. And while we're maybe not expressly encouraged to lie to people, the millennial mindset is to be accepting and to be accepted over being authentic. I won't lie to you, but I won't tell you the truth either, if that'll be upsetting. That's the social equivalent of modern design. I won't design my building to say anything specific because some people might not like that. And it's more important to be tolerated by everyone than to potentially upset someone. We might want to make a statement, an authentic statement within our design, our speech, in many different ways, but we're discouraged from doing so if it could potentially offend someone. So we opt for baseline, which means we really don't have anything interesting to say. And I think this has ripple effects into Gen Z. I'm a late millennial, early Gen Z, so I feel like I'm kind of in a unique position to be able to look in both directions and see this. Gen Z seems to often display a lot of fear of the idea of being authentic. Sometimes being authentic is potentially embarrassing. People might think, you're cringe. but it's also cringe to go along with the passive, unrealistic niceties of the millennial mindset, which essentially has nothing to say. So the safest, coolest thing a Gen Z individual can do is just call everybody cringe and embarrassing, but not risk doing anything authentic and real yourself. And if you ever actually want to do something authentic or real, you have to do it ironically. And we wonder why Gen Z struggles with so much existential dread. My goodness. Let's move into the second reason, consumerism culture. It's an unfortunate reality of the Western world, but it's true. Our culture has got to have the next thing. And the people who design the next thing, the people who sell the next thing, want as many of us as possible to continue buying the next thing. So similarly to the millennial mindset of being accepted by the biggest group possible, the people who make the products that we buy design them to be accepted by the largest group possible. So everything is baseline. Do some people really like colorful and unique products that have something to say? Absolutely, yes. Some people really love that kind of thing. But not everyone wants that. But most people will accept a gray, colorless version, a version that has nothing to say. By making as few statements as possible, we attract the largest amount of consumers possible. It's kind of ironic. We have essentially sold authenticity. It's gone. We can't buy it because our culture wants to sell the most it possibly can, and authenticity can be a risky business. Now, an interesting thing to consider, though, is prior decades. The 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, they're all very easily defined. The 50s is where mid-century modern design really hit its stride. I think we peaked here. Vehicles had a unique look. They were colorful. Statements were being made through these designs. And then came the 60s. Psychedelic colors and themes entered into the mix. The 70s took that to a fever pitch. Organic shapes began to pop up all over the place. Everything was really weird, really colorful, really strange. And then the 80s kind of came in and suddenly reversed all of that, and geometric shapes began to reaffirm themselves. But they still maintained a lot of those psychedelic colors that came from the 60s and 70s. So how did this work? Consumerism isn't exactly new. People of prior decades still bought things. But why did those products, why did those designs have such a unique voice? Those designs were authentic. They made statements. Why don't they do that anymore? Why does each decade have such a definable, authentic design? Tangible examples of American culture at that time. And why do the 2000s and especially the 2010s seem to be so much harder to define? Well, that brings me to my third point, the high influx of immigration over the last 20 years. Immigration is a complex issue, or at least it's become a complex issue. And it's had a very notable impact on American and Western culture. Why was American culture so clear and obvious 30 or 40 years ago? Well, that's because the vast, vast majority of Americans were, well, American. The mantra of America being an idea sounds really nice, but when you dig into it, it really doesn't mean anything. America is a place, and Americans are a people, and those people historically have had a culture. I'm not saying that someone from outside of America could never come to America and become American through the process of immigration, but I believe that the immigration systems of America and the West have been drastically altered to bring in as many people as possible and then not encourage them to assimilate or adapt to our cultures and customs. And in so doing this, a new cohort of consumers enters the market. And while they're not the majority, they've become a big chunk of the pie. And while Americans like apple pie, not everyone is American. And so not everyone likes apple pie. So we've created a pie that everyone will tolerate. I'm mixing metaphors here, but I think you know what I'm saying. The appeal of our culture, the appeal of our designs has to be watered down to appeal to the largest amount of people possible. 15% of the country doesn't like apple pie, but 95% of the country will settle for rice cakes. So, eat up your gray, monochromatic, flavorless slop that doesn't have anything to say. You can't be authentic in a multicultural society. It's unsafe to be authentic in a multicultural society for a lot of reasons. Authenticity doesn't always sell well. It's bad for the bottom line. Authenticity could offend some people. It could make those people mad at you. It could potentially put your life in physical danger. So it's best to just not say anything at all. Make no statements. Be inoffensive. Be gray. And it's interesting how this seems to only be in one direction. I don't see other cultures promoting tolerance and acceptance and watering themselves down. I actually see them promoting the base natures of their own cultures. They are encouraged to be authentic while we are encouraged to suppress our authenticity. So I guess I don't really see it as much of a surprise that American and Western cultures are fading and becoming more challenging to define. I'm definitely not the only person who's made these observations and connected these dots and drawn these conclusions. There's been a shift in the overall conversation about American and Western culture in the last couple years, but it really feels like it's picking up a lot of momentum as of late. And honestly, I think that's good to see. It's good to know that I'm not crazy. Other people are seeing this too. I love America of yesteryear, and I want to build a new America that has the same levels of authenticity that they did back then. America was great because America was good. And now America is, I don't know, because America is, I don't know. I'm very interested to see what happens in the next 5 to 10 years where that's going to lead us culturally. That's all I've got for today. But what do you think? Have you noticed these trends in design and culture? What do you think is causing that? I would love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. As always, if you enjoy my content and want to see more, I would really appreciate it if you liked and subscribed. Hope you're all having a fantastic day, and I will see y'all next time.